Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's live stream for DCS World. Now, originally, I had planned to do another F5E Tiger 2 live stream today, but one of our German translators put together a couple really great previews, one in English and one in German on Friday. And I think for me to do another F5 live stream today might be a bit of a Tiger 2 overload. So I thought I'd do something a little bit different and actually jump back into the A-10C, which is an old friend of mine that I haven't had a whole lot of time to spend time with lately. So it'll be nice to get back in the cockpit and hopefully I remember most of the procedures. But the other reason I wanted to jump in the A10 today was to take a look at a couple of new features we're working on for our virtual reality implementation, and particularly with the Rift for this. So actually, let me jump into the options, and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about here. So go into our settings. Oh, need to bring. There we go. Okay, so actually, first over in the Systems tab, we're going to have a new preset here for VR. And these are our initial thoughts on trying to find the best balance between performance and looks. But of course, this is just a Lua file, and if you feel some of the settings could be adjusted to more to your liking, of course, you can adjust it to your pleasure there. But let's take a look at the new VR tab here in particular. So first, of course, we have our enable or disable the VR headset. Of course, this applies equally to both the Rift and the Vive. The next is the slider here for pixel density. So we can go all the way down to, I think it's 0 or zero point 0.5, and then bring it all the way up to 2.5. And for me, I found about 2.0 is the best for me. It definitely has a pretty noticeable increase in resolution. It really allows me now to read virtually almost all the gauges, particularly the HUD and larger gauges. Some of the very small text for labeling on some of the instrument panels is still a bit blurry and difficult to read, but for the most part, it certainly makes the cockpit more legible, as well as making it a bit easier to locate targets outside the cockpit. So again, we'll take a look at 2.0 today. 2.5, for me, I can't see a whole lot of difference, but I'd rather have a little bit of a boost in performance down at 2.0 rather than 2.5 and perform a little bit less. Now, the next two are use mouse and box mouse cursor. The second one, we're probably going to replace that name. It's not very intuitive. So when it's set to use mouse, it actually goes back to what we initially had in our VR implementation, in that whether you're in the front end UI or in the simulation, you now use the mouse to control the cursor, which is great when, particularly if you're in the UI and you're in the mission editor or selecting missions and that sort of thing. But when you're in the aircraft itself, it certainly gives you a lot more control when the different interfaces are off to the side or certainly behind you. But when you're using the mouse, of course, and you have to take your hands off the stick and throttle, which can be a bit difficult at times, particularly if you're in the middle of combat. But it's an option. The other option we have, which we call box mouse cursor, which will probably change to something like head movement cursor or something like that. Was essentially what we had before, where we'll have a cursor locked to the center of the screen, and you move the cursor by adjusting your view. So if you place a switch in the center of view, you then place the cursor over that, and then you can manipulate the switch that way. The second half of that, which you still need to implement, which we will do, is having right and left mouse button clicks assigned as keyboard commands that you can then assign to your HOTAS. So in that way, you could essentially look at a control, hit a button on your stick or throttle, and activate it that way, which makes it just a lot easier. And the only problem is, again, if you have controls off to the side or particularly behind you, that system becomes very, very difficult to use. Now, another big reason why we have the head movement control is a big requirement of the Oculus Rift is be able to play in the entire game without touching a mouse or a keyboard. So this is a big reason why we had to give this second option as well. So by having both options, hopefully we'll be able to make most everyone happy. Of course, everyone's never going to be happy, but at least most of you. So those are some of the new VR functions we have coming. But there are other VR things we're definitely working on right behind it. Probably the biggest one is improving the readability of the text and menus when you're in the simulation, particular radio commands and such. Right now, it needs a lot of work, and that's probably the biggest priority we have right now. After that, we have other items such as the knee board. I'd love to have a zoom toggle, and a few other things. So certainly some work to do, but slowly and surely we're getting there. One of the big issues why it's taking a little longer than we would want it to is we have one engineer assigned to this, and he also happens to be our lead engineer, and he's being pulled in 1,000 different directions, and particularly 2.5 right now. So when he has time, he's definitely working on it, but there's other higher priority issues he's also working on at the same time. So let's go back and let's take a look at a quick mission in the A-10 where we'll actually do this in VR for the first time, and hopefully this will look pretty good. So let's go to the editor. Oh, actually, this is the upcoming 2.5 map, and the eagle eye view probably see a big addition there, but we won't look at that today. So let's load up a quick mission, which actually is going to be a modification of an existing instant action mission. Loading, loading, loading. Okay. And naturally for today, I'm going to be using the mouse cursor control in VR. Okay, so I'm going to be taking off here at Nellis, flying to the northwest, hit some targets out here near the whale, and fly back. So let's go ahead and get this going. And then next weekend, hopefully I'll pick up the F5 Tiger II again. And in particular, I want to take a look at navigation with the TACAN, as well as the ADF, and maybe a little bit on landing. Okay, here we are. So let's go ahead and fly. So actually it brings up a point here is that you see some users have a bit difficulty when they jump into VR the first time that the cockpit's really too close or way too far, and there's really no good way using the zoom functions to address that. So the way I always do it is either lean forward or move back. In this case, I'm going to lean forward and then hit the recenter, and that puts me back in a position I want. Or if I want to move forward, reset it, I move my view back, hit the reset key, and then I'm back forward this way. And that's usually a pretty easy way to do it. Okay, so here I am on my A-10. Now, so with the mouse cursor, we have our green reticle here. And I'm really happy with the work Alex did on this. As you can probably see, the cursor essentially automatically goes to the plane that it's over. So on the console here, it's on the console. As I move it up to the front dash, it's over the front dash, or even if I put it here on the stick, it goes on top of the stick. So very easy to use this way. Um, I'm very happy with it. And if you let go of the mouse and don't move the mouse for a while, it will automatically disappear, as you can see there. Okay, so let's get this bird up and running and hopefully remember my starter procedure. Let's close this canopy. And I'm not sure how well it comes across in the video, but at least for me, using the pixel density of 2, all the gauges are just, much more clear, much more easier to read, and even the small numbering on the dials, whereas before, I would generally know what it was indicating just based on already knowing ahead of hand uh, what the different numbers were, but actually for me now, they're perfectly legible. Okay, fuse going, so let's get the left engine up and running. Oop, I forgot something. Seat up a bit. Oop. Actually, go ahead and get nav systems starting to get aligned. And I think as you can see, using the mouse, it's very easy to manipulate the cockpit now. And again, particularly now here in the back, much more easy. Turn around. Okay. Get the second engine going.
Pull up, pull up.
Actually, don't want to do
Altitude.
that. I need to load my profile. Okay. Okay, make sure my distance got loaded. Good. Come back to CDU and let that align up. Let's see what else I can do in the meantime. Get the oxygen going. Don't need to worry about that. Get the radios on. Get my SAS going. Actually, I'm gonna turn off the APU. Okay, engines are good. Fuel's good. Okay, pretty much just waiting for my alignment to finish up now. Go ahead and put that in standby. Flaps down to takeoff. Seat height looks good. Okay. Reset the view again. That's better, actually. And even, you know, back away, I can still read all the different labels on the TAD. No problem. Alrighty, okay. Go ahead to nav, turn on the Iggy. Okay, let's see. Seat arm. What am I missing? Anti-skid. GCAS, fine. Nose wheel steering. Okay. Probably missed a couple things, but that should be enough to get me airborne. So let's go ahead and take off. And particularly now with a much more easy to control cockpit, VR is really starting to become a real pleasure. And you add that to the pixel density of really being able to read the cockpit much more clearly, even more so adds to the experience. And I think once we get the menu text more legible, at that point, I think we'll probably submit it to Oculus to get on the Oculus Home Store. But we wanted to make sure it was cleaned up a bit more before we put it out to the VR masses. Should put my flight plan on. That's better. And I know it's said a lot, but until you actually do VR yourself, it's really one of these things that's almost impossible to really describe or really give a feel for. It's one of those things you have to experience to really understand it. I think a big part of it is the depth of the world around you, and just feeling much more immersed in that sense of presence, actually in the simulation itself. Okay. Okay. Here we go. So we'll start off. I'll rotate about 140, 145. Airborne. Gear up. And flaps up. And of course, another big aspect of the VR experience is very smooth gameplay to avoid any jutter. And of course, all the time we're trying to find ways to improve the optimization in VR in DCS world. And we definitely have some ideas on that front, which we'll be implementing. Raise the seat a little. Ooh, wrong way. That's better. Let's see, I'll go ahead and get my Maverick spun up. Let's go ahead and get some of the systems going. And we're going to head out to part of the range just north of Creech, which is dominated by the whale. And we got a target array out there we'll go ahead and work over. And as I think I mentioned in the live stream last weekend, right now most of our map team is focused on the map upgrades for the Caucasus for DCS World 2.5, which is going to be a pretty significant map update. But we're going to hold some of the surprises for that a bit longer, and I think it'll be well worth the wait, though. But once they do complete that, then they'll be going back to the Nevada map, and we clean up some bugs, and then adding some new features. These aren't promises, but one of certainly some of the things we're looking at. The first being adding Tonopah Air Force Base up in the northwest corner of the range, which I think will be very important. And then adding some additional airports around the map too, maybe North Las Vegas, Henderson, some of the smaller strips up in the range area, and even it'd be nice to have Laughlin down the south, so you could have some really large distances between, say, Tonopah and Laughlin. You know, that'd be particularly uh, useful for some of the online players. And I know a lot of you guys would love to have Fallon, but even right now, Fallon Naval Air Station itself is just barely on the edge of the map. So for us to actually add Fallon, it's not just adding the base, we also have to add the entire range as well as buffer area around that range, and that would be actually adding a very large area to the existing map. So um, I probably wouldn't hold my breath for that right now. But certainly something that's well within the range, which I think would be very interesting, particularly for something like combined arms, would be fleshing out the National Training Center, the A-10C, uh, down to the southwest of Las Vegas. And be very interesting for combined arms. And then later on, if we start adding DCS level tanks, IFVs, and things like that, it would be an ideal location for those type of vehicles. Almost there. Got Creech up ahead, and then we'll head north. I can see the whale right now. Actually, get the pod out and take a look over there. I believe it's already set as my SPI. Let's see. Yep. Okay, and there's the whale kind of in the center of my view with a small hill to the west, and the target array is between those. There's the whale, there's the hill, there's our target array. I think tanks are on the north side. Yeah, it's T-55s. Okay, set that to my SPI. Okay. COP. Bring up my Dismas. Okay, Maverick. Again, even with the pixel density now, I can easily see the tanks on the Maverick display. Come on. Come on.
Contact armor target 12 o'clock, 47.
There we go. Rifle. I go ahead and cage back my Maverick. And so I got 2 H's and 2 D's. Ah, that's my bad. Coming with a gun run on these artillery pieces over here. And it was interesting when we were doing the A-10C desktop trainer for the Air National Guard. We got a lot of videos from the Guard um, when actually one of their pilots was assigned to the test squadron at Nellis flying the A-10C. And a lot of the actual videos we got from them took place right at this very spot. So it's kind of fun now to replicate a lot of the videos we got from them here within DCS. Okay, let's go ahead and let's bring up the other Mavericks. Okay, we got 2 burning there, 1 left. Where'd you go? Rifle. Do some rockets. And like I was saying before, once we get the in-game text issue resolved, just to make it much more legible, I think at that point, except for some fine tuning and again, kneeboard and zoom toggle and a couple other things, I think we'll be pretty golden here with DCS and at least the first generation of VR. Try a low drag drop. What do I got left? 3 more marks. One thing always takes me getting used to in VR is neck strain. Years, actually not years, not too long ago, I've had the opportunity to be in different simulators, Hornets, 16s, and A-10s in the dome simulators. And one thing I always remember about those was just how much of a sore neck I had looking over the top of the dome for like an afternoon. And it's a very similar feeling I've have here in VR now, particularly if you're in a BFM fight. It feels like you're pretty much you're looking up at the ceiling most of the time as you're looking across the circle. Okay, Mark 82s are gone. Let's do some more rocket delivery. There's my buddy. Hi, buddy. Actually, one Maverick left. Let me go ahead and use that. Take out one of these last vehicles. Okay, anybody alive? You look alive. Ah, okay, we'll finish up with a couple gun runs. Okay, just two RD pieces. That'll be it. Hmm. One more. Actually, drop a CBU on him. Get some altitude. Okay. Yeah, definitely looking forward to Hornet, where I can grab altitude a heck of a lot faster. Fuel, 2600. And another big thing, actually, our effects guys are working on are the new explosions. And I haven't seen them personally myself, but from what I've been hearing, they're looking really good with very minimal performance impact. So, really looking forward to that. And another big item the effects guys are working on is the new grass system. Okay, it's rolling. Come on, come on. Okay, that does it for a little weapons practice. Go ahead and RTB. Yeah, doing that just wasn't possible with the fixed head movement cursor. go ahead and navigate back to Apex for my IP, and then head on in. Actually, been looking down at the CDU on the right panel. I can actually still read it. So yeah, really happy with the pixel density option. And also been flying some air-to-air with it recently as well. And that in conjunction with the enlargement options, it's certainly not too difficult to tally air-to-air targets as well. I think some of you guys were a little disappointed at just how short last weekend's stream was, so hopefully this one will be a bit longer for you. Although certainly not very exciting, this part of it. And I think next weekend's stream, the F5, doing some navigation landing, won't be as long as this one, but certainly longer than the first F5 stream. Just wait till you guys see the new Forest in 2.5. You can see Apex up there, just right of the HUD. clearly make out the speedway and then Nels just behind it. And we have Apex right below us now, coming in on the final. It's been a while since I've done a landing in the A-10, so hopefully this won't be too ugly. Oh, yeah, not the greatest, but got me down. Well, anyhow, folks, that's the live stream for this weekend. Again, I want to give you guys a look at the A10 in VR, and in particular some of the new VR features that we're going to be rolling into the release version, and hopefully the not too distant future. So have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you next time.